Joyful, joyful, you're not enjoying your life because of your problems. You're not enjoying your life because of your attitude toward your problems. God of glory, Lord of love.
You wake up and your knee is hurt. You don't say, oh, my knee. You say, Lord, I thank you because you're a healer. You're a healer.
Hearts that fall like flowers. You see, how can you put your faith in God when you're having problems if you don't know that you know that you know that He loves you?
I'm bringing them in. I'm bringing them in. You have to learn how to bring them in every dark situation. I'm telling you, it works.
All right, welcome to the first episode of Esther Jen podcast. The actual host is here to my left. And we just want to wish all of our mothers a happy Mother's Day out there. We thank you for your work. We thank you for everything that you do. And yeah, did you want to say anything?
Yeah, I think the definition of mother is so vast, and it's not just having your own children. You have spiritual mothers, you have sports mothers, you have other different types of mothers. So we just wanted to say Happy Mother's Day. We honour you, and yeah.
All right. So, we thought with this edition, with the first episode of Esther Jen podcast, that we, we'll do a special Mother's Day edition. And so that's what we're bringing to you right now. We're going to be talking, about our parents, about our mothers, I don't know, what was the first thing you wanted to talk about?
I think it started when we first started talking about what our mothers, it's Mother's Day today. I lost my mum when I was young, and Tionere lost his mum at a later age, but we were talking about this would be a great first episode to be able to honour our mothers and the reasons why we want to honour our mums and what they done for us and what they left behind.
Yeah, I reckon let's go with a funny story first.
I don't have many, but I do have one. I remember when we were young, we as a family we used to do prayers, and so I remember us doing prayers in the room, and everyone had their heads bowed, and I think I might have been like 5. So when and normally when you do your prayers in that you turn the light out, right? So as we were doing prayers, they heard screaming, and everyone looked around, turned the light on, looked around, and I had put a whole jar of Vicks in my ear. So so my mum was giving me a hiding while she was trying to wash up the Vicks, and that's my funny story. What's one of the things that makes your mum memorable?
I think it was our language. I didn't realize until later on, it was a problem for a lot of people. But it wasn't a problem for us. My old lady wasn't the type of person that said I love you. She never said I love you, no, not to any of us. By all means, it didn't mean she didn't love us. Just she never said the words, But we knew, our love language was mocking each other. That was our love language. That was, what we did to, and laugh at each other, and just engage in those ways there. And I think that was that was one of the things that I loved is these days, the word love just gets chucked around so easily. A lot of people love you, bro, or love you, sis, or love you, just everything, but it doesn't really hold too much meaning these days as it did,
It's a lot more heartfelt, and
it's like
your word is your bond.
if
type
somebody
thing.
said they loved you that time, like it was like winning the lottery on a scratchy. That's how rare and surprised he was. I think when it comes to my mother, out of all my siblings, and I think there was seven, 8 of us. Me and my cousins were probably the closest to her, and we stayed with her, and we, But I was the day that she passed. We went to the doctors. That day she didn't feel so good, so we went to the doctors. And he said that she was fine, so there was nothing wrong. She just had to take these and she'll be fine. And this was in Upper Hutt, and she said to me, I'm hungry. I want to go to KFC. So, I was like, yeah, okay, cool. So I took her to KFC, and, me, like, not understanding that she's not going to be around all the time. But I didn't think about it, I just got so used to seeing her there. So I was like, after I had KFC, I said, you all good? And she was like, yeah, I'm okay. I said, okay, I got to shoot. So, I shot off to go and do my business, and, I think this was a Tuesday, and then, I think Thursday, someone came and visited and told me she passed. But I'll be honest with you, it didn't sink. I went up to the hospital to have a look at the body, and I cried, but I didn't know why I was crying. I wasn't sure what I was feeling, to be honest, at the time.
Was it so sudden? Was it because it was so sudden that it was almost unbelievable?
When I look at it now, it was probably I took for granted. I took for granted, and I think the words you want to say and all that stuff starts coming. I was shy,
How were you, like, once you were identified, your mum and stuff like that? Was it up to you to sort everything?
Well, I went to the bottom of the hospital and I started punching cars. Like like I said, I couldn't identify it, and there were a lot of people have a better way, but I don't know, didn't talk, and I think that's one of the things that I love about these days is there's always that encouragement to talk, to reach out. I think it's not that it wasn't. You just don't realize, you know. And so what happens is everything bottles up, and then all of a sudden you're stuck in a weird place where you can't identify what you're feeling, and you know you burst out in the wrong ways, you know. And yeah. Anyway, enough about me. Your turn.
My mum, she came from Samoa. She married my dad, or they came away to New Zealand for a better life. And she came from a well-educated family. They're all teachers. And I don't know much about my mum, to be honest. Over the years, we've found out more, and I've been able to get in touch with my first cousin, my mum's sister's daughter, and she's the only one left alive out of the sisters. So I'm really blessed to still be in contact with her. With my mum, yeah, the things that I remember about my mum was she was always there. And I didn't know, this is from a little kid's point of view. It's not until I done the research and, you know, talking about with my siblings that my dad had left my mum at the time. And so my mum was raising us on her own. And our neighbours watched over us a lot. And back in those days, because my English was my mum's second language, she didn't communicate as much. And so, yeah, I just remember growing up with a lot of, back in those days we had, you know how all the kids go on the street and they all play together? So we all the neighbourhood kids, like, grew up like that. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, one of the things that I do remember about my mum is she was a very gentle person, quiet, probably because she wasn't confident enough to speak English, you know. She definitely was a mum who I always remember her dropping us off to kindergarten and always picking us up and always just was there all the time for us. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about a crazy moment.
Okay. My brother was chasing after me in the house. And I don't know what I was thinking, but he was chasing me. We've got a hallway like this, and then it goes straight like that. So you go here, and then it goes there to the kitchen. So on that bend, the dining room's there. So as I'm sprinting down the hallway, and my mum's coming carrying a boiling jug of water to the dining room. Yeah, and so, yeah, my brother's chasing me. I run into my mum, and, you know, through no fault of her own, I jump and bang into her, and the jug tips down my front. And, yeah, I still got a burn scar to this day, but that covered my whole chest. And back in the days, they didn't educate very well. Instead of water, it was butter. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That was a crazy moment.
Yeah. Jesus, I think my old lady, she had a few, but I think one of the ones was, I got the police, they came and saw me, and told me that they had arrested the old lady, and I was like, oh no. So, I went up and, kind of, they said she had a run-in with her landlord. But if you know the old lady, she was like, that was like a monthly thing with her. She'll run in with the landlords most times. And, get evicted most times too. So I went and then I read the statement of facts. So the landlord had said that she was 6 weeks behind, and he said, in a nice way, he said, look, you don't want to let it get too far ahead. Get too far where you can't catch up. Otherwise, I'll have to evict you. And she, straight away, she took offense to it, and she was like, oh, what you trying to say? Yeah, that you start threatening me, and he was like, no, I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying I'll have to. Then, she pushed him, and, obviously to defend himself, he kind of like, just held her back, and then she went and grabbed the baseball bat, and she smacked him off the back of his head. So she went to court for it, and, they let her out, and then, she went to court the following week, and then, she pleaded not guilty. I was like, wow, you're not getting away with this, and the cop, they were going to do community service because, obviously she hasn't been, when she pleaded not guilty, they straight away said, oh, we're going to go for, the maximum penalty, which was assault with a deadly weapon or, aggravated assault, which she was looking at 4 to 6 years. So I was like, and the court case lasted about 6 weeks. And, man, she put on the best acting I ever seen in my life. She put the tears of an old woman, like she had the jury like in her fingers, and at the end of it, she got off it. He got charged so what came out was he was frauding the system, and she came out and said everything, so that's what actually happened was, she kind of found a way to kind of get him if he tries to go for her, and he got charged at the end of it, and she got off. She didn't get any money, and she still had to move, so
but at least she didn't have to pay it back.
Oh well, she got off. She bashed a man with a baseball bat on his head. I never seen anyone get away with it, So
your mum sounds like we talk about it, but she sounds feisty and.
She's feisty. She's funny. She's got a lot of heart, though. If you talk to, it all depends on who you talk to. Everybody, we're amongst the, we're a demon in somebody's story. So it all depends on who you talk to. In my eyes, as it would be for anyone, their mothers, regardless what people say, and regardless what they do, they're always going to be, the queen in your eyes, So, with my old lady, it was exactly that. I never, we argue, but I've never ever laid a hand on her, and I've never ever laid a hand on, any woman, even my sisters. And to be honest, my sisters are just as feisty as her.
Is that a personal thing, or
for me, it's more
respect, or
I think it's more just my understanding or my, like, I've had men come in and out of our lives. My old lady, you know, she was a player, you know. But, you know, she, you know, we had men coming in and out of our lives, but the only thing that was really consistent in mine was the old lady. You know, she's had a lot of abusive, as a lot of people have, she's had a lot of abusive things in her life, and she still fought through. You know, my own father, you know, I witnessed her and him. You know, he's a big Tongan man, and I witnessed those two, you know, kind of having a punch up. You know, he was throwing her up against the wall, but, you know, my old lady was throwing him up against the wall. It was a funny moment, but a shocking moment at the same time, you know, because it was like one of those, oh, you know, like it was one of those moments, you know. So, yeah, she had a lot of heart, and like I said, but she made a decision. So she was kind of, what do you call it? Those pre-engaged, what do you call those marriages things? You know, when your parents set you up for
Arranged
marriage, yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
So she was in one of those, and yeah, and that's where she met my sister's, or, you know, my half sibling's father. At that time, he was in he was in a gang, but a well-respected man. She decided, you know, at a certain time that she had enough, because I think, yeah, she was probably about 16, I think, when she,
Oh,
yeah.
and that was quite young in those days.
Well,
Or was it
I've heard of a
quite
lot more
normal
younger.
way?
Yeah,
That
it was quite
the normal
yeah.
age back then.
But she, yeah, she decided she was going to, and she ran, and she took off to Wellington from there.
Like she ran away from the marriage, or
Well, no, because my old man, she met my old man, and you know, which is where I was. So I was born in a place called. Well, I was born in Gisborne, but not. Yeah, but brought up in a place called Matawa. It's one of those places where you blink, you miss. You know? And she just kind of, you know, found her. What's the word? She found herself with my old man, and he was, well, you know, the family loved him. You know, he was just one of those. You know, he done well on the sharing, because they all worked in the sharing sheds and on the farm. So, you know, it was one of those old school kind of, you know.
yeah.
And then they decided they're going to take off to Wellington, and that's when they, you know, that's where the big shift. Then we became city, you know, city
From
slickers.
country to city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, she kind of, yeah. Like, I don't know a time, you know, honestly, where the old lady kind of had a happy moment. Yeah, I don't know a time where you could call, and, you know, maybe you could say we were her happy moment, or, you know, but I don't really recall a time that she actually expressed or it looked like she had happy moments. It just kind of looked like she lived a very hard grind the whole time through, you know. Yeah, I don't know a time that she was really happy or she expressed she was happy. Yeah, like I said, she just kind of, like, from my perspective, for me growing up, I just, you know, found it hard to see her with you know, I don't know, that looked like, you know, she was having a good time. It just looked like she just grinded all the way from, you know, all the way through. So, you know, for me, it was it was it was kind of hard. But and I see a lot of mothers, they go through that. Like, don't get me wrong. But I'm just talking about personally between what I saw in her.
Yeah.
She was on that grind of just down Struggle Street, getting evicted, running from bills, kind of, just really, like, obviously she didn't have a man, didn't have somebody there that was just kind of in it for the long run with her, She just kind of struggled with it, So, yeah, like, that's her. Yeah. What about you?
You talked about your mum's passing before, and I think with my mum, there were things that she had. I talked to you about the neighbours looking after us. So my mum struggled with mental health and well-being. She used to check herself into a mental facility every now and then when things got too much for her, and the neighbours used to look after us. And so and that's probably her struggle from when my father left her and she was raising 5 children on her own, trying to make ends meet, a single mum. So, as time went on, I was about 6, my younger sister was 5, and my older siblings had gone out to mow the lawns with for our neighbours, and we had at the time I think it was gang members next door. My mum was out, picking up the washing. She told me and my younger sister to go inside. There was arguing between us, my mum and the next door neighbours, and so she
There was 3 of them there. Or was it?
Yeah, there was 3 of them. There was a lady and 2 men. Whatever argument they got into, it moved from the side of the house where our washing line was to the front of the house where me and my younger sister were on the front porch. And when you're young, you're in shock. So one of the guys grabbed a 2x4 and started smashing my mum. The lady jumped on my mum's back and was smashing her over the head, and I don't know what else. But basically beating her up. And after they had finished, me and my younger sister we were just crying on the porch, and I think, like, I talk about it now, the trauma that happens. So I went from a happy-go-lucky, because I'll be honest, I was a happy-go-lucky kid, very mischievous, always got into trouble, and I went from being that to overnight just being absolutely terrified. And so my mum was lying on the ground, and if Elijah, if you can just bring up slide 1. Yep. So that was our house in Richmond Grove in Moira, and it was in the news with with my mum being killed. So Yeah, so what happened was, while my mum was laying on the side, um, my siblings came home and
Yeah. It's. I mean, I've heard your story so many times. It just never gets any easier. When you hear it.
yeah, so I think, I think you don't realize a lot of things happen from there, but my dad ended up coming back to raise us.
Put up the second one.
Yeah. Yeah, so actually, sorry, once my mum was beaten up, they arrested the guys that done it. And I think when you're young, you don't really realize it. So all these articles that you see, when I was at a later stage, I think I might have been in my mid-20s, I felt I needed closure, and so I went and researched my mum, and that's why this is where you've got all this evidence, because you don't realize people made a big thing of it back then, and I actually didn't realize how big it was until I actually saw the articles, the paper clippings, everything. Yeah,
Put up
so
that final one.
I think what makes it even harder is the fact that they got off on the murder charge, and I didn't understand that, but my older sister, I can't even begin to imagine what she went through, because she had to testify in court at the age of, I think it was 12, and yeah, my sister's an amazing person, and she's very, very strong. But she took on the mother role for us while we were growing up, until my dad remarried my stepmom. So growing up in that space, it was quite traumatic. It took a lot of layers to get to where I am now, to peel away.
Yeah.
And I've met this amazing man who is Māori Tongan, who happens to be my husband, and we've had our journey, but and it's quite funny, like you said, to go from Māoris killing, beating my mum to death, to marrying a Māori and learning about his culture and being proud, and he's taken us down to Opotiki, which is where his family is, and the last time we went as a family, we just saw the land and the mana that was there, and I'm just it's amazing. A few years ago we started doing boxing, but we went back to where my mum was born in Samoa, and I think was last year, the second or third time we've been over for sports. I just felt a connection to the land, and a real connection to the motherland, to my mum's, her birthplace, and it's and I feel like Samoa's a heart connection for me. So so I think a lot of layers, a lot of things to, as life goes and journeys on.
It puts. See, that's why I don't really like sharing my testimony, because when when you put my testimony or a lot of people's testimony against it, and saying that, like, that's not even the end of it. Obviously, we're not going to go into the other part, but that's not even the end of your testimony. Like, it just gets worse from there. So, I think, like like, don't get me wrong, me, like a lot of people, we go through stuff, and, we might even do a lag, or, but that's all self-inflicted, I always say this, it's self-inflicted. We brought that upon ourselves, we made choices, and unfortunately that's what happened, with yours, it wasn't, it was forced upon you, that choice, that was forced upon you in order for you to kind of deal with what was going on. It made you sheltered. It made you go into yourself. That, and the next part of it was even worse for you and your siblings, so to me it's that's there was no way of getting around it for you guys. To me, you guys were going to go through the bull of it, whether
I guess that's what makes women so resilient. And like, I know for me, I definitely have a story, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about helping other women who go through stuff, because we all go through stuff.
With estrogen. Obviously you got a lot of your ladies and all that sort of stuff. Like, talk a little bit about what estrogen is about, and what you're hoping to do with the podcast, and
estrogen, I guess for me, we started off, and Ali is one of my sisters, and so is Bex and Mel. But we came together as a life group with Bex originally, and after a few years, myself and Ali took over the group, and I think it was at that time COVID came in, and so it was more
what came in?
COVID.
What's that?
The pretend jokes.
Don't talk conspiracies.
But I think for us, like, estrogen, it's faith-based. It's a faith-based life group, and it's about women doing life with women, and it's open to anybody, and it's about just doing life together. And women are so resilient, but they all go through challenges, and and I'm just going to be honest with you, in this culture and this day, women tear down women, and they backstab them, they don't want the best for them. But we need more women groups that commit to standing in the gap for other sisters, cheering them on, whatever challenges they go through, just being there. Sometimes you don't need to say anything, your presence is just enough. You don't need to, So for us, estrogen is about women encouraging women. Women, no matter what happens in their lives, they'll still support them no matter what.
Yeah, I think, you're going back to that woman tip, but I think I shared this on a previous podcast. That's not just women, unfortunately, they talk about the Kiwi culture, and yeah, like I said, I've already made my, opinion known on that one there. Like, that is the Kiwi culture, is tearing each other down. Men, women, like even the youngest ones. At one point, we had the highest rate of suicides in the world.
Yes.
I don't know if we got the highest right now, but I do know at one point we had one of the highest teenage suicides in the world. And because that's the culture that we build. And not only is that the culture that we build, it was weak at that time to ask for help. And you were mocked quite badly for it, so, I think, I feel it's man, I gotta be careful how I put this. It's a poor person's mentality. You're down Struggle Street, and so when you see somebody kind of coming up and getting out of there, doing well for themselves, the instinct is to not be happy for that person and quickly tear them down. We see that in sports, we see that in the workplace, we see that with people doing businesses. Even in our groups, like a lot of people, have been, we've seen a lot of people talk about this on social media, even some of our friends, talk about how friends don't support each other, and, that is one of the unfortunate things about us is, we don't support the majority. I talk about land. I think I gave an example of land meetings in the last one, eh?
You did.
And every person that has land meetings with their families will be able to attest to this. Like, it brings out the ruthlessness in a lot of family members, and, because maybe there was some dodgy dealings done back in the days or whatever it was, but, the minute you start going into a land meeting, like, all hell breaks loose, so land is even, but, the problem is they're all fighting for, like, a share on a block that has thousands of shareholders. It's like you still don't own it. You own a share in it, and majority of those shares you can't even build a shed. So it is one of the most unfortunate things about this time. And like we said, Indians, Iraqians, Iranians, Muslims, that culture, they all get in and really support each other, I mean, I remember, who was it? Were they Iraqians? Where the brothers, they all stayed in the same house. I think it was Powell. Was it Powell that told us?
I think it was
Powell.
Yeah. And he was saying that, all Indians, were all brothers, they stayed in their house, and the wives stayed in the house. It was the brothers' jobs to go out and work, and they all paid off the house. Once they paid off the house, they moved to the next house, and then they paid off that house, and then they moved. Like, they just, like the thinking is just climbing out together, not I can't get out, I'm pulling you back down, kind of.
I think that's what, like with Estrogen, like I said to you, it was faith-based. With a lot of faith-based ones, there's a scripture that goes with it, and so for us it's Esther 4:14, and so it talks about the general, it's talking about Queen Esther, and the general thing of it is her people are about to be annihilated, and she's been given a position as the queen at the time, and in that moment in time, her cousin Mordecai basically says to her, for such a time as this, you don't know that you were put in this position, and some of us are put in positions of power, but we abuse that power. And so I think, like, for her, for such a time as this, she was put in there because she actually went on behalf of herself to the king. And in those times, you at the time, and we're going back to Bible times, in order for you to survive, basically, he had to put a scepter out to you. And so she didn't know when she, went into the throne room whether or not she was going to be accepted, because if the scepter didn't get out, then she was killed immediately. So, yeah, so for this particular verse, for such a time as this, such a time as this, whether or not to stand up and take a stand, to overcome, to do whatever it is that you need to do. You don't know that sometimes it might be, your time. And so, yeah, so that's what Esther Gen is about, for such a time as this. Whether, and we all go through challenges, we're going to keep going and keep building and doing what we need to. So, and with women, yeah, there's a lot of women that go through a lot of stuff and it's very silent. And it's within these women groups where you get to share your actual journey in a small space, what you actually go through. And so, and it's through that there, that, like we talked about in the sharing earlier, in a few episodes for Kingdom Boxing, we talked about the sharing, and that brings healing and things like that. So, yeah, without going into too much other stuff, yeah. So for me, and everyone in our Esther Gen leadership, all passionate about women, all have got different experiences, and are all passionate about, just doing life and doing life successfully in the best way that they can.
With your guys' ministry, like you fellas have, you've done a trip together?
Yeah, we went to the Send last year in September, and definitely a life-changing moment, like another level up, so to speak.
You see a lot of people like come away from God, and they start rallying for atheism and all that sort of stuff, and you kind of think to yourself, it's so easy to say, oh, it's because of your denomination. Hey, it's so easy to blame the denomination. It's so easy to say, oh, it's because that was your pastor, without really kind of looking at yourself, and just kind of say, no, is it you? Like, were you really as strong as you thought you were? Did you really have a real relationship as much, as you thought you did? What were you going to church for in the first place? What were you calling yourself a Christian for in the first place? And I think like there's a lot of the things that people kind of get lost in. And it just like Esther Jen, like we have a group for men's, which is but it is like you look after the ladies and I look after the men, and our one is Journey Within, and that one there is about kind of learning to open up, as I was talking before, like we don't really do it enough, and learning to open up kind of what you learn is when you open up, you may not find the answers, but you may have found that the answer was just in the sharing, not so much in what was the answer to what you were sharing,
Yeah.
And a lot of the burden is kind of, and then you find out like, there's some people in there that are,
But to be honest, some people actually don't know until they speak about it that they were actually burdened about those things.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not until it's verbally expressed that they realise, oh, shivers, I didn't realise for all this time I was holding on to that. And so we talked the other day about unforgiveness and bitterness.
Yeah.
And if you don't learn to let go of those things, it's going to damage you, and resentfulness. So it's going to damage you down the line. It might not happen straight away, but your whole personality and everything changes. You find that you become negative. And to be honest, I've gone through a stage of that where bitterness can sometimes overtake you, and if you don't let it go, man, does it overtake everything, where people actually don't want to have anything to do with you because all you can do is moan, groan, and complain about everybody else rather than be uplifting.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one of the verses in the Bible too, It's, love your neighbor as you would thyself, and I think, we don't realize that we do it, but, a person can be their own harshest critic. You hear somebody do something or say something bad about you, you might forgive them. You see a person fall in the middle of the road, you'll be quickly over there to help them up. You see a person get angry at themselves because they made a mistake, you'll be the first one to say to them, stop, don't be so hard on yourself. But when it comes to yourself, it's the absolute opposite. And I think that's why, in Matthew, where it talks about, loving your neighbor as you would thyself, when you learn that, you would probably lay down for your neighbor, but would you do that for yourself? And if you wouldn't do it for yourself, then you're not really upholding what the values of the Bible, And I think, when we learn that we are just as valuable as the person that we love out there, it just opens up a lot more blessings. It opens up a lot more healing. It opens up a lot more.
I think the other thing too is, and me, I struggled with this for a long time, but actually knowing what your own worth is. And I think for a long time I struggled with self-worth, but it's knowing what you bring to the table. It's knowing that's how I see it. And it's been a journey, but it's knowing who you are, knowing what your worth is, knowing who you are and that's what builds confidence.
And not being complacent on it too.
No.
Hey, it's always knowing what you're worth and then don't be afraid to, still, get yourself in a better place.
Hey guys, this episode is sponsored by Oceania Products. One of our products is sea moss. Sea moss. If you don't know, do your research. It's super healthy. If you order from their website, www.kingdomboxingnz.com, use code KINGDOM for a special discount.
This is my why. That is why keep this on the check, get the full ride. This is my 4 beats to the side. Why? From my heart to your baby, it's possible.
As we've gotten older, we've realised the age of internet is you can get information at the tip of your fingers, and so we have now. We're an older generation, but like you said, as we get older, and even in growing, we keep learning, and so
we are older, but it is exactly what you said. It was about the age of internet. It opened up information that we never were supposed to be opened up to. It let us know things, and then, obviously there were the conspiracies and there were, an overload of, misinformed misinformation. But, it was, and the age of internet had, let's be honest, me and you, we kind of came through from no internet and no devices to kind of having it introduced into our lives halfway through.
Yeah, dial-up.
Or even the last quarter.
I remember dial-up. Yeah, taking ages.
Yeah.
Yep.
And even
video games.
Like, the dial-up and, the downloading, yeah. Yeah. Darth Vader, but like it was the, just we came through and then all of a sudden it was introduced to us and we were like, oh, cool. Now we didn't think much of it, right? We're just like, oh, that's cool, that's there. Oh, I might try that, here and there. But it was our children. Hey, it affected them the most, and we didn't realize it. It affected them in a very negative way.
I think so.
Because we didn't understand. Now, as the years have gone on, we've kind of realized, okay, they were subjected to too much of this and too much of that. It's made them kind of want too much of this and too much of that, and they get satisfied with not really experimenting. Like you remember, in our days, like you wanted to go meet somebody. At that time it was the nine-eye dances and
the blue light dances,
the blue light,
the socials, the
blue light. What was the blue light again?
Remember the police ones when you were a teenager?
Right. I don't remember blue light like that.
Yeah, because they're run by the cops.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So.
But you're kind of like, oh, okay, I'm gonna say, obviously that whole week, the boys are pumping out weights and, trying to do the bestest for their body, and they're getting the mean ass haircut, and it's literally like, oh, it's next weekend, so straight away, probably from the Sunday onwards. That's your preparation time. You're doing all this sort of stuff, haircut, clothes.
But you're also talking about, like, yes, that. But the other flip side of it was, learning their dance moves.
Yeah.
Back in the day, I remember going clubbing till 6 o'clock in the morning, where we just danced all night.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the difference between women and men. We wasn't really there. I'm not spending a whole time going, spending a whole week trying to do myself up so that I can go dance for hours.
Well,
The whole point was to kind of pick up somebody, So my whole point is like that's off a span of a week, and then you got like, all right, I've only got one day to get this done, and then I get to see somebody, and then hopefully you take a gamble and it works out, but these days with social media and the internet, it's like it's just right there, and then what happens is the younger ones kind of don't think they need to go and they don't need to put in that much effort anymore.
But you remember that program, Catfish? Hey,
Yeah.
And it just reminded me, like, anybody under any profile, I think that's where it started becoming a thing, where, like, people were posing as other people and they'd be doing it for years and then finding out, remember? That they'd meet them in the park and it's totally someone not that person, and that's where I believe that a lot of stuff started.
Yeah, that's right. There was that
down.
negative kind of using the internet to trick people.
Yeah, and that was a big series. I don't know if it's still going now.
Yeah,
but some of the stories were shivers. Yeah.
But there were also some stories that were true, though.
Yes.
So, I don't know. But yeah, like, with just the age of internet was just that. It was a weird time, and, like like a lot of other parents have realized, we might have made a mistake there. Even parents, even our kids that are parents, they go, I might have made a mistake with myself. I'm not going to let that happen with my kid,
Yeah.
And they start forcing them to go out and play. And
I think one of the things that I would like to say is the iPads or the phones are babysitters now, basically. And as parents, I think one of the things that we need to be aware of is making sure that those, what do they call it? Those filter things where the kids, it's like a security blanket and they can't get past it. What's it called?
Parental guidance or family filters.
Yeah, parental guidance or family filters.
see, he knows.
Yeah, well, see, there you
Because
go.
we didn't put enough parental guidance and family filters on
Yeah,
them.
well, that's telling you, right there. So I think even for me right now, like I'm quite old now, but I talk with some women and they don't realize that their kids are up to no good. And it's not until you point them out to say, well, did you know that this, and this? And they're like, oh my goodness, So,
But in all fairness, like, let's be honest, Lodge, when were you first savvy at technology? What age?
I was pretty young.
Yeah, young.
Yeah, because I was half tech savvy-ish, but I didn't get like properly tech savvy until I started coming up here during the school holidays when I was staying with Eklund and them up in
But you knew devices and all that quite well, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so what we don't realize is at a young age they're very, very smart. And
I think, like you said, we didn't really have internet at home, eh?
No, because
you weren't really exposed to that until you went somewhere where
it was
available, I guess.
Yeah, because when we were down in Wainui,
you can hear the feels in my voice. Am I right? Shut up. Anyway. Can you hear the feels of my voice getting angrier and angrier? Yeah. Anyway, let's just move on. So sorry, you were saying, Lige?
Yeah, no, I was just saying because we were down in Wainui, like I always used to have my bike and just go to
Those
either-
internet cafes?
No, I remember down in Wainui, we never had these. All we had was the shopping mall where the old KFC used to be. The fish and chip shop was there. Or I go right to family members or friends. But I mean, yeah, it wasn't until we
Brother, relax. Gotta stop saying names, brother.
Man, don't say names, man.
They're gonna be
Not unless it's in a good way.
Well, that is a good way because
Yeah.
I mean, down in Wainui, like I went there to visit them, hang out. Like there was
And-
nothing really.
jump on the computer.
No, they never had. The only thing we had close to the internet was just PlayStation and Xbox. But
See, but even that, hey, you learn that can actually connect too, eh?
yeah, well, I didn't realize that until afterwards, and there was like online stuff. But
Yeah.
before that, we always had like 3, 4, 5 of us in the house. We were always bloody sharing.
But let's. So how did you get?
Tech savvy or
So where did you get your corn with a P? Like, how were you young ones able to get that? Was it just books, or some of the boys would have?
it started off with books,
Yeah,
and then later on it kind of went to the internet. I wouldn't say who had them, but yeah.
Oh, all of
Yeah.
a sudden it's privacy now.
Oh, what you just?
yeah.
There's no names now.
Oh, okay. So, and so when you fellas but even at school,
Yeah, so not at school, but when we used to go to the internet cafe.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
Didn't they have filters on at the internet cafe?
no.
Nah.
Oh, they
'Cause-
didn't.
Nah.
Oh, wow.
That's where a lot of that's why like a lot of people used to do their meetups was those online dating
Oh, I
internet
see.
yeah.
Okay.
I don't know, but I saw this on a movie. Apparently, hackers go to internet cafe. Yeah. Hey, you remember? You remember when your cousin got hiding for and being blamed for using the computer for corn, and it was you?
Nah.
Da, 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 da.
I wish I had that camera.
I have to say sorry to that cousin. You know, so I'm pretty sure they got a big fat hiding.
Bro, that's the funniest one ever. Yeah.
It's not till you find out afterwards that it's funny now, but
Well, there's a lot of stuff that you do back then, we all did back then. We can laugh about now.
But back then it wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't funny.
But I think that's that's where growth happens. Hey, is when you can laugh about your mistakes.
yeah,
It helps you grow.
yeah,
It shows that you're not allowing your past to hold you prisoner.
yeah.
It's showing that you're not allowing that to rent a space in your head or your heart. It's showing. So it's always good to laugh. You're funny. You're funny. You're funny. Trust me, you're funny. I guarantee you, every single one of your mates have a funny moment about you, but you don't realize it, but they do. Yeah. Yeah. I think, what was it? When you were young, you used to play a lot of sports, eh? Well, you played netball competitively, and you were like one of the tall girls at that time.
Yeah, because I remember she was saying that she used to play like touch and athletics and stuff like that.
Yeah. You remember when you said to me you were a gun player at touch? Yeah. Trash.
No, I don't think so. Look here, you. I used to play in a rep team for touch.
You always use that. Yeah, I used to play in a rep team, you know. Getting together with the aunties and a couple of the cuzzy bros down the street is not a rep team.
Oh, I used to play for Green Machine, man. So,
Dad. Oh, okay. You know
Come
what? You
on,
can have
mate.
it. You can have it. It's Mother's Day. Oh, no, you can have it. Yeah.
look, my foot's over here pressing in, doing that. But I think, where were you going with that?
Well, you know, you had a
thing?
lot of natural sporting like talents, you know, and you know, if you look at Lige, he's exactly the same, eh? He's got a lot of attributes, natural attributes that, you know, kind of give him an advantage. And I think when you were young, you were kind of the same, eh?
Yeah, I think the difference between me and Lige was because sports was on a Saturday, we weren't allowed to play sports on a Saturday. I think I was only allowed to play sports, and that was volleyball during the week. I never got to play sports on Saturdays until I actually left home.
Yeah.
So I think, but for us now with Lige, we've just supported him like all the way. But I think that's what I wanted to do something different where my kid had an opportunity to play the sports. So we never did.
Yeah, couldn't you? I mean, you couldn't. Like, I didn't have the same problems that you had. You know, my old lady, you know, was happy for me to go and play sports, go to training, and do everything. You know, happy for me to make the rep teams and all that sort of stuff. It's just I couldn't make the rep teams.
You made a rep team. You told me you made the Tongan team.
Oh man, anyone could have made that Tongan team at that time. And I also told you I got knocked out in front of everybody on that Tongan team, you know? Like, and you should have seen when I went to school the next day, I was the laughing stock of the school. Man, if there was a memory I wish I could delete from this planet, it was that planet. But yeah. No, I think I think this is a good episode.
Is it?
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah. One of the things, just wrapping up after all the different topics and stuff that we've covered, if there's one thing that I believe that my mum has passed on to me is she was a very wise woman, like in my eyes anyway. I look back on her life, she's very humble. Didn't really say much, but she I believe she was a person that loved deeply, and hopefully I get to talk to my auntie in the next couple of months, but that's my mum's last surviving sister, and so just want to hear more about her and what she was like. But to me, she was a strong woman who was raising 5 kids on her own, who had her own challenges, and despite everything, she done the best that she could. She overcame, and back then, to be honest, you didn't get many women that were raising kids on their own. Back in the 70s, there was always a male person around, and so I believe that my mum was a very strong, resilient woman, and from the cards that got dealt to her, she done the best that she could, and I'm very, very proud, and I honour her today for Mother's Day, and so just very blessed.
I think for me, one of the things I took away from my old lady was the loyalty of family. It means more than anything. And it didn't matter if it was close, like the immediate family, or second cousins, third cousins, or even down the line. Like for her, one of the things I took away from her was the family unit. Right or wrong, whatever we did outside, we were right. When we got back home, it was a different story, but we were never wrong, and she demanded that on all of us. You're never wrong outside. You stick by each other, it doesn't matter what, and obviously the correction will happen when you get home, but she would never allow us to embarrass each other or get embarrassed in front of other people. She didn't trust this world, so in her eyes, protect those that you love, protect those around you, protect the family unit, and be loyal. And for me, I don't really like giving people second, third, fourth chances, even though that's what the Lord says to do. Hey,
70 times
70
7.
times 7, you keep on forgiving, basically. But it's not I can forget, and I can cut the heartstrings and walk away. But that's my process, and then somewhere down the line I can forgive. But if you're telling me that a person comes and does something to you, and you're supposed to forgive them right there on the spot, that's hard. That's harsh, and I think that's
that's pretty trying for everybody, anybody, to be honest.
Because in my eyes, it's like I could forgive them, but are they gonna see it as forgiveness, or are they gonna see it as
weakness?
Oh, let me, take advantage of him. Seems he's like that,
Yeah.
And so when it comes to our family, I'm kind of like that too. I just there's not really a lot of people that I really want. Probably you edit this out, to be honest. Might offend some people.
They'll be looking at all the situations with that was me. Oh, he has.
Oh, that's why he doesn't invite me. That's.
You're not enjoying your life because of your problems. You're not enjoying your life because of your attitude toward your problems.
You wake up and your knee is hurt. You don't say, oh, my knee. You say, Lord, I thank you because you're a healer. You're a healer.
You see, how can you put your faith in God when you're having problems if you don't know that you know that you know that He loves